Good day, good night, and welcome to the All Elite Review Show. I'm Kevin Laramee, joined by Jason Hagholm once again. And first of all, before we get started, apologies for last week. From time to time, Jason and I are called by a duty, and last week was one of these weeks. But Jason, we are back.
Yeah, we are. I had to do a basketball game as university basketball got started last Wednesday. So unfortunately, I was unavailable to watch AEW Dynamite live, but caught up on it. So I have seen every episode of Dynamite, including tonight's unique episode of Dynamite.
Yes, it was unique. Of course, there's a few different things that happened tonight. We saw the Librarian for a rare time. Good thing we didn't see them for too long. We did see the Rock and Roll Express in 2019 involved in an angle and be powerbombed through a table. Oh, good old Ricky Morton. And we also saw a contract signing, Jason, without a brawl. That was quite funny, with maybe my favorite line in the AEW so far as well. Of course, it was uttered by Chris Jericho. But let's start by last week's episode, the end. The Jon Moxley going into Tony Khan's office little angle where Tony Khan mentioned to Moxley, by the way, Tony Khan was never shown, only heard, which is kind of gives us a little flashback from WCW back in the day for sure. But Tony Khan saying to Jon Moxley, your match is going to be unsanctioned, which means it doesn't count on the record, which means if you beat Kenny Omega, you're not going to get anything out of it. And Jon Moxley did not take this lightly, saying the blood on Kenny Omega is going to be on your hand, Tony Khan, on your hand, AEW. And which leads and gives a bit more drama to that angle as well, Jason.
Well, I mean, it is interesting. I thought the repackaged video from the package video from last week was really good because obviously on the live showing last week that they missed some stuff, couldn't put everything in live, so they did re-air AEW Dynamite, I believe, last Friday on both TNT and here in Canada on TSN with, the Hangman Adam Page and obviously the Jon Moxley running into Tony Khan's office stuff that you just broke down. What do I think about it? I mean, once again, it's like another match with Jon Moxley that's unsanctioned. Like, I don't think they needed to go this route. Like, sure, the first match you had with Moxley and Joey Janela, that's fine for whatever sake. But this match has been a big program and a big match that everyone's been looking forward to in AEW. I don't think we needed to have it right away be unsanctioned. I think these two would just have a killer match, or why couldn't we just have that? And I mean, to Moxley's point, if he wants to get storyline wise and in reality, if he wants a title shot, he wants this. If he gets the win, he wants that win to count on his record. As now it's unsanctioned, it won't count. So he's upset. And as well, I mean, we've seen a lot of Tony Khan. This first time really him involved on Dynamite. We've seen him involved through the social media and whatever, and that's fine. I just don't hope they turn him into a character, because the more you mention him by name or whatever, he eventually has to become a character.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing with TNA before with Dixie Carter. Like, she never wanted to be a character, and then they put her on TV, and then she eventually became a character. Now Tony Khan's a different story because he still has to deal with like other NFL owners for decisions about the National Football League. Like, you can't have him be a character on the show, and I think that's why they probably kept him off screen for those aspects. But hopefully they don't make him a character, and hopefully if we see or hear Tony Khan's name, it's very rare occurrences.
Yeah, because the line becomes really quick to cross between what you're doing and between just a copy of what has been done to the last 3 decades as a authority figure or a heel authority figure. So you want to be careful you never go to that route. And I think so far that they've stayed underneath that threshold. And I hope that the authority stays a bit vague, because that's how it is in multinationals and big companies, right? It's kind of vague. Who's your boss? You have middle management, and eventually we're going to get commissioners and stuff like that, probably. But I hope that you're right, that the Tony Khan aspect becomes a very rare occurrence, and only for time to time for stuff like this. And I guess they're trying to go with the unsanctionable type of gimmick with Jon Moxley, and maybe leads to more down the road. But let's look at tonight's episode number 5 of AEW Dynamite. Dynamite, coming to you live from the Charleston Coliseum in Charleston, West Virginia. It has been over 15 years since professional wrestling was produced in the state of West Virginia, Jason.
Yeah, that's what they said. I mean, the crowd was hot. They were very excited to see professional wrestling back, and obviously Charleston, West Virginia was a big town for WCW, and with the roots that AEW has with some of the WCW guys from the past behind the scenes, I mean, it makes perfect sense for them to run there, and I thought the crowd was hot all night. They were into everything.
They were really hot, and I guess the fact that they were forgotten for a long time by New York, let's call them that way. They were forgotten by New York for a while, or Connecticut, but they seem to be really taking a strong hold of the former hotbed of professional wrestling in the South, or in the gateway to the South Midwest, and we've seen this part in West Virginia. And of course, this show was touted as the final of the tag team tournament, and we had the tag team match at the end of the show. But the show started with Tony Schiavone greeting Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes as they arrived in a private plane in Charleston, Charleston, West Virginia. I had a lot of flashback watching this. Just the plane, the three-piece suit, the brothers, Tony Schiavone there, a Rhodes family present. Yeah, this felt like a Starrcade moment.
Yeah, very similar to Starrcade 93 with Ric Flair, and going from his home to the arena before he has to have a chance to win back the WCW World title from Vader. Definitely had that angle. I mean, and then when they did the cutback later on in the show to Schiavone and Cody basically telling stories about Dusty Rhodes, I thought maybe we'd get some sort of attack or something, but it was actually kind of nice. They were just having a nice chat, and just a unique style of something we haven't seen in at least 30 years in pro wrestling.
And I really like the fact that they add some cinematic pieces. Of course, there's some weird cinematic pieces, like the one later on with Brandy summoning Awesome Kong. I don't know if that's the Halloween spirit that got into Brandy Rhodes, but I like the little more production values on the video pieces, and the fact that they're well thought of. They're carefully written in a way that's believable, of being a conversation, being like filmed as part of a documentary, team following Cody, and you could believe that aspect. And of course, having the Tony Schiavone, or the Schiavone as some would call him, having him involved into this brings credibility. It ties everything up. It can bridge the last 2 decades without WCW. And I know we mentioned WCW almost every show, and I don't do it on purpose, but the similarities are too obvious not to mention. And I think they're not necessarily similarities. They're inspiration and ideas to build upon, and it's going to lead us to eventually probably a great payoff down the road. But I think it's a great way to establish your identity by choosing something that people have reference from, and using it to build your own.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Hangman Page defeated Sammy Guevara. Finally, a win for Hangman Page. It was a good match. Better work than the last few times we've seen Hangman Page. And, of course, for me, I'm still a bit cold of Hangman Page, just because the way he's been portrayed on AEW television, always the fourth man into a tag team matchup, or always the less important of all the elite that is there. This time around, he was the featured man in this match, and Hangman Page, not only did he get a W, he also got the time on the microphone to hype up his match against Pac at Full Gear.
Yeah, I really liked the opening match here. I thought it was it showed that AEW's got a lot of confidence in their young guys like Sammy Guevara and Hangman Adam Page. They did a lot of great back and forth stuff. Guevara did a spot in this match that I thought was so unique, where he got like a boot or something to the outside. Adam Page threw him back in the ring, and as soon as he got back in the ring, Guevara made a U-turn right out and just whipped Adam Page off the ropes, or off the side of the ring apron, to the floor. And I thought that was so unique. We need more of that in pro wrestling. Just smart heels taking advantage of situations where the babyface leave themselves open. But I mean, this was a hard-hitting match as well. Paige gets the win. I mean, they were really building up that Guevara had kind of countered when the buckshot lariat would come. And then the thing with that move, you can hit it out of nowhere, and Paige does that. He gets the win and then gets a promo on the microphone, gets a little explicit as well. And, we're pretty much set up right now for Paige to take on Pac, a rematch, a big program that they've been developing here in AEW, really since the dawn of AEW being launched. And, I'm excited for it. While you say, Kevin, that you're maybe cold on Paige, while, sure, his win-loss record isn't great, they've still kept him around looking important. So I wouldn't say he's totally cold like a Dark Order.
The Dark Order is the worst thing on TV right now, in my opinion. Good thing I don't see them too often. So that's another again. Hikaru Shida defeated Shana in the following match on AEW Dynamite. But just before that, there was a commercial break, and we saw the Rock and Roll Express meeting with Private Party backstage, just establishing relationship between babyface tag teams, exchanging probably some tactics. Rock and Roll Express probably sharing their 50 years experience at this point now with Private Party. Hikaru Shida did win this match versus Shana, and this was a first match in AEW, well, on TV for Hikaru Shida, and she did perform really well. She has great work rate, and she's going to be a star. The crowd was hot for her, and both women actually put in a great work rate in this match in the AEW Women's Division.
I think the thing that impressed me about this match is, while we've seen Hikaru Shida on AEW TV and the pay-per-views, not as much as some of the other women, they were into her. And for Shanna to just make your AEW debut kind of out of the blue, a cold open, if you will, these both women got both the crowd involved, invested in it. And, West Virginia, not normally, excited about, this style of wrestling from its history. They like the Southern style more so, but crowd was into it. Like we said, all night long, anything that was on in front of them in the ring, they were into. As you said, Hikaru Shida is definitely going to be a star. I thought it was a real good competitive back and forth match. Even got a commercial break, I believe, in there as well. So I was really impressed with it. And for Shanna, I think this is a good performance from her as well. Obviously in there with a really good opponent, but you go out there, you don't get lost, you don't let the moment become too big for you, and she handled herself well. And I think definitely is someone we're going to see around here for this developing AEW women's division.
And I like the fact that the women's division in AEW, all the matches do not look alike. And the talent so far, if you include all the talent we've seen on TV, and with the following segment, of course, Brandy Rhodes and Awesome Kong are in the conversation here. So you have a lot of different type of athletes. Britt Baker to Riho to Awesome Kong. Like, if you compare Riho to Awesome Kong, there's a bit of a slight disparity here. It's a bit of a different type of wrestling, and I like that. Every match is going to look a bit different. Not everyone is having a similar moveset outside of finishers, and I like that, and I think it's going to be exploited to its full potential here in the AEW Women's Division. Then there was a cinematic Brandy Rhodes package. She was looking at pictures of Britt Baker, Riho, and then there was summoning of Awesome Kong with candles, and I don't know if there was tea leaves and some patchouli and maybe some pentagrams in there. Was she trying to send some curse to maybe Riho or Britt Baker and trying to summon Awesome Kong on her side? This was kind of weird, especially when Kong used the meat cleaver to chop up some extensions. Yeah, this is not the greatest thing in this episode.
No, I didn't like this either, and I don't know where they're going with the character for Brandy. I mean, she's excited about what they're doing, this kind of Halloween stuff, but it felt very 1992, very Papa Shango style stuff that I don't know what the vision is on it. I guess we really need to see how it plays out, but this just came out of nowhere. Really didn't feel like it fit well in what the show or what AEW's been trying to do as of late. But yeah, this was not the best thing. I guess maybe we'll have to see another vignette or two, but I mean, it's interesting because Impact last week yesterday did a vignette about their character Su Yung, who's an undead bride who was strangled a couple weeks ago and like did die on Impact at the hands of Jessica Havoc, and then she was resuscitated, brought back to life, and is a totally different character from what she was as an undead bride. She's now like a legit bride before she became the undead bride. But this made more sense than whatever they're going with here for AEW. So yeah, I guess we wait and see it out.
And I'm also wondering, Jason, what are they doing with Brandy Rhodes? Because when she's part of the vignette or almost those short movies with Cody and the hype of the championship match against Jericho and there with Tony Schiavone in the conversation, when Brandy appears in these videos compared to this one here, it's two different characters, and I guess it is becoming a bit confusion. Who is Brandy Rhodes, and what is her goal? Is she an important piece backstage in the life of the VP and Cody and all that work with the company, and she is responsible for the AEW Women's Company, like the division also? But then she's trying to summon demons to help her maybe achieve her dream of winning silverware here. Which one is it? And I guess I'm a bit confused with Brandy Rhodes at this moment.
Yeah, like, I mean, I know I saw a tweet out that she was going to spend some time away from Cody, like, obviously in terms of the storyline that she's not going to manage Cody, but we also know she's legitimately heavily involved in getting talent for this women's division, so I don't know, like this, I totally agree. Like she's all over the place character-wise. Like she's a couple weeks ago on Dark with Dustin and MJF and Cody, and now she's Papa Shango. Like I don't know where we're going with this, but I think maybe another week or two to see some vision out of here. I don't know. Maybe she snapped and is in the Halloween spirit. Who knows?
She inspired by the spirit of Luna Vachon. It's that time of year, I guess. Then the Rock and Roll Express were on the stage with a tag title. Of course, Ricky Morton said it was great to be back in West Virginia. West Virginia is one of the places where the Rock and Roll Express fought a lot back in the day, if it's for Smoky Mountain or even before that, and talking about from the World Class Championship Wrestling days. Yeah, Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton, it was not their first time at the Charleston Coliseum, but it might be their last, because when Robert Gibson, old Bobby, started to cut his promo, Santana Ortiz jumped the old guys from behind because they're cowards, and Santana Ortiz gave a beating to both the Rock and Roll Express, power bombing Morton, Ricky, through the stage. Of course, the babyface, the Young Bucks, came out to make the save, and Santana Ortiz took off, and that was going to set the stage for another intervention of the tag team of the Inner Circle later in the show.
This was an awesome angle. Like, obviously, the Rock and Roll Express were out there. Were brought into, I guess, originally they were going to have them present the AEW tag titles to the winner of the tournament, whether it be SCU or the Lucha Bros, and then they came out and just got jumped by Pride and Power, or Power and Pride, and first of all, they got jumped in like a unique weapon. Instead of a chair or a kendo stick or something, it was some sort of object hidden in a sock. So that was straight unique. And then it was, as you said, the big spot on here was that Ricky Morton got powerbombed like legit through like this table that was a part of the stage. And I mean, for, you know, Santana and Ortiz, that has to be huge. They were huge Rock and Roll Express fans as kids, worked a match with them over WrestleMania weekend in New York.
Yeah, last year, yeah. But this year.
But this was obviously probably a bigger thrill as they get to be the badasses that get to, you know, send these veterans down and give Robert Gibson all the credit in the world. Or Ricky Morton, excuse me. Like, this guy is up there and almost around his, I believe, 65, 70 in that age group. He's taking these bumps.
You remember last year they got in? Was it last year or a couple years ago? They got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, right? And they pitched a storyline. They pitched a way for him to get a match. Of course, they were never going to get a match, but they might here, and that's where I think this is very fascinating. The legend might pass the baton in this company. I think the Rock and Roll Express might have a match. Okay, Jim Cornette's not going to show up, that's for sure. But I would love to see the Rock and Roll Express for one last time, this time on TNT.
I bet you we do get that at some point against Santana and Ortiz, but we shall see where that happens. I mean, that would be awesome. Like, they can still wrestle. Like, they just wrestled in the NWA Tag Tournament back in the spring. So, I mean, they can actually put on competitive stuff. And then you would have to say the Rock and Roll Express have literally wrestled for every major promotion in the United States.
In the history of wrestling, almost.
The history of pro wrestling, whether it was World Class, Mid-South, Crockett Promotions, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the WWF, WCW, then
TNA.
TNA, Ring of Honor. Like, they've done it all.
Here in Montreal, IWS and others, they've been literally everywhere. Next, Cody and Tony riding in the limo. I've seen this before. It was a great callback, and I know I keep going back to the callback, but to me they're subtle. What I mean by callback sometimes is just a camera angle. Just a camera angle of the limos, done in a very particular way, that gives you a static shot of that limo, which draws you into the conversation and the emotion of the two men having that conversation. I thought that was brilliant. It's simple. It's a camera, static, probably stuck between two seats somewhere in the back of that limousine, shooting Tony and Cody talking to each other. But I thought it was brilliant, Jason. I thought those little details are what makes us not feel stupid for watching.
The thing that you knew they were like legit driving somewhere was that the car, when it hit some bumps on the highway or the uneven spots on the highway, would hop up, and you could hear the springs or the shocks on the car go up. So thought that was interesting. And obviously the big thing here was to talk about like how important this match is for Cody. Like, he said to Tony that his mom's gonna be there, and Tony encouraged Cody to use that emotion that he had and form positive vibes for his family to beat Chris Jericho. So a nice little touch before Tony and Cody arrive to the arena.
Yeah, and the way they're hyping Cody, the way they're saying, oh, he never won the world championship, it's the first time he'll be world champion. Last time his mother was there for the Dusty matches, and now she's going to be there for Cody's matches. He's got to win. He's got to, you know what that sets out, right? He's going to have a big defeat at the end of Jericho and the Inner Circle. At least that's what I'm seeing with all the foreshadowing of Cody Rhodes. So that leads me to what's the storyline and where is it going to go? Are they going to go with maybe the slide into depression and going downhill and then really hitting rock bottom storyline before having the redemption and finally the conquering of the big bad Jericho Le Champion? That could be a long story arc. That could be fun, but that would mean that next Sunday, actually it's a Saturday pay-per-view, so on November 9th, next Saturday, Cody would lose. But I like that. I like the fact that they're foreshadowing, so it gets you thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we still have one more week to go before the Full Gear pay-per-view, so there's going to be one huge angle for it, as there was a big one tonight, which we're almost at.
We're almost there. You had the comedy match, of course, of the best friends and Orange Cassidy dressed as Rick of Rick and Morty, or Morty. I'm not familiar with Rick and Morty a lot, but a big population, a big size of the fan base of AEW are fan of Rick and Morty, and this show was sponsored by Rick and Morty. It was called the biggest crossover in the universe of, I guess, Rick and Morty and AEW. Not familiar, but I know there's multiverse in Rick and Morty. And this show inspired, of course, by Back to the Future and the cartoon and Doc and everything. It's interesting, and you did see a working relationship with a product that is considered cool by its fan base in Rick and Morty, and a product that is considered cool by AEW. We're far, far, far removed from big wheels sponsoring WWE here. So I like that aspect of it, but this match was a comedy match of the show.
I mean, yeah, but you had if you were going to do anything involving Rick and Morty besides the sponsorship on the ring, which I thought was pretty cool, with the Pickle Rick ring posts and the Rick and Morty sponsorship on the turnbuckle. This is the team you use. You use best friends, as they were dressed up as Rick and Morty. I mean, it was a fine for what it was. You just let the best friends hit their big spots. The big thing, obviously, they teased the hug between Beretta and Sexy Chucky T, and QT Marshall broke up the first one, and then finally they got there, and we had Orange Cassidy hit his insane tope suicida with his hands in the pockets, and yeah, best friends get the win. And I mean, if that's what you're using to plug a pretty successful, probably the most successful cartoon show that's going today for the Adult Swim on Cartoon Network, this is the right team to use it. And I mean, if you're gonna have that, sure, whatever. I mean, it was what it was.
And they don't try to make us feel like it's not that forced. Like, okay, look, it's the sponsor of the show. We're trying to integrate it the best way possible. And they're not trying to make us feel stupid, like, oh, we're just seeing this guy backstage eating a Wendy's burger, of course, just like that, because no reason. No. It makes a bit more sense. The contract signing, Jericho, Le Champion versus Cody. That nice contract signing. First of all, that blazer by Chris Jericho, not a fan. It did have a color scheme reminding me of a certain Halloween Havoc in 1996, but it was interesting to see Jericho in a contract signing using this platform to tease Cody a few times with the proverbial flipping of the table, which usually happens in a contract signing. But what did you think about the first part of this contract signing before we get to Guevara's face appearing on the Titantron?
I thought it was fine. Like, I really did like it. I thought it was unique that they didn't want to use the ring, because obviously if you use the ring, you think that's where an attack's going to happen, or some sort of interference or run-in, what have you. So they used the stage. So that was a different look, which, obviously AEW is trying to do everything that is totally opposite of what WWE would do. So they used that, and Cody came out, got a huge reaction. I thought Jericho shows, again, why he's the best in the world, because every time he said something that got a reaction, he let the fans chant at him, whether it was "you suck," and then he, of course, said that he didn't suck. Skivone sucked, who is, of course, Tony Schiavone. Skivone, yes, that popped me huge.
Me too. I'm still laughing.
So that was pretty funny. And then I liked how Jericho was using the mind games of, like, waiting to sign the contract or getting up, pretending he would, like, attack Cody, and Cody, like, just on edge for the whole thing. And I think the key to it as well was Jericho doing all the talking. We didn't get to hear from Cody to the live audience. He just, had the look of intensity and showed how focused he is on Chris Jericho trying to win this AEW championship from him in about a week's time at Full Gear. So I really did like that. And I mean, the thing that AEW is just showing is unscripted is the way to go in pro wrestling. It just felt so organic, the whole interaction between Jericho and Cody and Jericho and the crowd and what have you. It just feels normal, like you would expect at a MMA or a boxing contract signing type thing.
Or just in real life. If you get into an argument with someone, you're not going to start talking into a way that you've written, like, and thoughtfully thought about. If you're really angry about someone, it's going to come out a little bit different. And if it's me, it's going to come out maybe if I'm really, really, really angry, and you should ask my wife, but the French comes out when I'm really, really, really angry. So there'll be a little tabarnak here and there. But that's just me. So that's why when you hear Kevin Owens, that things happen. But you're right. And that's what I like too, a little bit of that aspect of keeping the emotion and having the heel play with the crowd, using the moments, letting things breathe a bit, not always wanting to have something hitting you or a phrase or a sentence, letting the words uttered by the performers to breathe and sink in. And the words that really made me pop huge, that really made me lose it, was the "calm down, hillbillies." just three little words, but well placed to a crowd that in the history of the United States, that's where that term originates from, that area of the United States. I thought it was so clever and so simple, easy, to the point, hurtful. It was a great heel line.
It's cheap heat, but cheap heat sometimes is the easiest thing and best thing and smartest thing to do in a situation like that.
Yep, I totally agree. But then Sammy Guevara's face came on the big screen with the Inner Circle, and they're showing. Of course, there was the shaking of hands between Jericho and Cody. Jericho extended his hand. Cody said yes, turned around, pulled him back in, and they started to be like, yeah, we're teasing an altercation. Video appears on the big screen. Uh-oh. Things are happening backstage outside in the parking lot. We see Jake Hager coming off his non-contest in Bellator last Friday, where he kneed his opponent in the balls 3 times in the same fight. And that's why the fight was a no contest in the same round, first round. And he kneed Dustin Rhodes badly in the balls. That was a great callback. I was wondering how long it would take them to do it. It took him a week.
Well, I mean, you may as well capitalize right after Jake Hager's fight in Bellator, which ended in a no contest thanks to Hager kneeing his opponent Anthony Garrett twice below the belt. In the second one, obviously, Garrett couldn't get up. Some were saying maybe it should have been disqualification, but he didn't even get a warning. He got a warning, then he didn't take a point, so I was fine with it. But, yeah, they had to definitely the next week on AEW have Jake Hager knee someone below the belt, and that's exactly what they do. As Dustin was actually beating up Hager, and then once Hager got in the clinch with Dustin Rhodes, he kneed him below the belt, and not once but twice.
Yep.
Drops Dustin, and then they slam the limo door shut right on the arm of Dustin Rhodes. And if AEW is just going to be Cody living some of his favorite WCW angles, I am okay with that, because this is exactly what happened to Barry Windham, who was Dustin Rhodes' tag partner at Halloween Havoc 91. Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko do this to Barry Windham before the pay-per-view starts.
Make it good. Make it good.
So if you are an old school fan, you will definitely remember that. And obviously this was a huge important angle for Cody as a child, as we did it right here. And then, of course, it was, everyone like MJF coming out to help make the save. And then it was the rest of the Inner Circle just heading off in their limo. And Chris Jericho wished us all a happy Halloween.
Saying, Cody, that looks bad. Should probably take him to the hospital. Happy Halloween. Oh, my, that was so great.
That was a good line. You should probably take him to the hospital. It was pretty good.
That looks bad. You should probably take him to the hospital. But I agree. Isn't it Barry Windham the godfather of Cody Rhodes as well? There's something, I think, relating there. But that's awesome. And you're right. So if Cody is going to find a way to materialize all his best angle of WCW, when are we going to get the match in a trailer van? Dustin Rhodes taking his revenge. I want to see that match again. Imagine a bale of hay on the highway in the middle of nowhere somewhere.
I think you're the only one that wants to see that match again. Okay. Never again. Never again.
It wasn't that bad, was it?
It was that bad. Okay. It got both guys fired. I mean, granted, they had a blading policy in WCW that both Barry Darsow and Dustin Rhodes did, but never again do we need to see a match taped a day or so in advance before, and it was just utterly stupid.
How did they come up with that idea back then anyways? I don't think it's the hay that was in the back of the truck that they were smoking. The Elite came out dressed as video game characters, of course. The Elite was in Street Fighters, Ken and Ryu for the Young Bucks. Who was Kenny Omega dressed at? I was trying to figure it out, but I didn't catch that reference, Jason. I'm a bit too old. I guess it went over my head.
I don't know who it was either, but the video that played before Kenny Omega came out was like teasing that maybe Kota Ibushi is gonna come there, because like right now he's doing big things in New Japan,
and he just signed a new contract, like 10-year long contract or a lifetime contract, something with New Japan. So I was surprised to see that as well.
So that was weird, and the screensaver type thing in the video was like an animated New Japan logo. So that was also weird. Like, I don't know where they were going with that, but
did Did they
teasing the fans?
It was teasing the fans, and did something happen that we're not aware of? I listened to Dave, and when Meltzer's not aware of something, it's pretty fresh. So we'll see down the road. But this did feel like a Golden Lover type of tease. That this did feel like maybe we'll see Johnny Moxley continue to be broken and beaten down, and eventually Moxley will beat down Omega, and someone's going to come to the help of Kenny, and maybe that someone is the Golden Lover himself, Kota Ibushi. We will see. But go ahead.
I think the thing that could be interesting is this Ring of Honor New Japan working relationship seems to have pretty much run its course. Ring of Honor is really struggling right now. Who knows if come 2020 it's New Japan and AEW that get that working relationship that AEW originally did want to use back when they announced the start of the company back in January. So I'm now wondering, do we get a working agreement here? Can have those, New Japan wants to run more shows in the United States, have that working agreement there. That'd be a huge thing. And of course, Golden Lover stuff always is awesome.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome, because then you would have AAA, you would have OWE, and you would have also New Japan Pro Wrestling with ties with AEW, which would make AEW a major part of the world of wrestling outside of just the United States, and part of the global conversation, and linked in a network of trading, maybe of superstars and others. So that could be a very good partnership if it comes to fruition. This match was made to give us some good wrestling, some good spot, obviously, to set us up as well for the end of the show. But I thought it was a great match. Always fun to see the Bucks. And of course, at the end of this match, we did see the return of Santana and Ortiz dressed, I guess it's Halloween, so they were disguised as Young Bucks fan in the first row. And
as Rick and Morty, too.
As Rick and Morty mixed with the Young Bucks fan, with the blue Young Bucks t-shirt. And they attacked Omega, and Omega made the save. Sorry, they attacked Young Bucks, and eventually Santana Ortiz did what they do best, which is run and scatter like cockroaches when a light opens. And yeah, this sets up the continuing feud between the Young Bucks and Santana and Ortiz, which will face each other on Full Gear.
Yeah, and I mean, this was a really fun match. I mean, Kip Sabian got his spots in. Jack Evans and Helico are quickly becoming a great, solid, if you need a good match type of team out there. I really want to see a one-on-one match between Jack Evans and Kenny Omega, just because how long I've seen Jack Evans out there on the scene, and finally he's out here on the mainstream making a name for himself. And I thought the finish was awesome with the V-trigger. Like, Jack Evans sold it like how you would probably take a knee to the head, just like utter death. Yeah. But this match was really good, but I didn't know if we needed this match, and they obviously need something to fill time, but I don't know if we needed this match here, because I was like, we have a tag title tournament, and you kind of could just kill the crowd a bit with how good this match was. Like, maybe you could have saved this for the main event of Dark. Who knows? Whatever. I mean, I guess maybe we're in the stage now in the world of wrestling where there's so much good wrestling that maybe we're becoming a little spoiled with everything we're getting. But it just felt like excellent match. Guys worked their tail off, but it kind of took away a little bit in my mind just how like good the tag title match could be.
No, I totally agree. And seeing, even if it's a 3-man tag team, it's still a tag team match before another tag team match. Of course, you had a little something in between, but it's not conducive to us having full attention. And if it was me, if I'm finishing my show with a tag team championship match, there's no other tag team match or 3-man tag team the entire show, just to highlight the differences of that match versus the other match. I would have a couple of women's wrestling in singles, a couple of men wrestling in singles, and then I would finish my show with the 5th match probably as my tag team championship match, just to make sure that it feels special and you don't see same type of movement throughout the game or throughout the show that you would see in that main event. But yes, of course, the Bucks and Kenny Omega were winners in this one, and Santana and Ortiz got the heat, I guess. Speaking of heat, speaking of going away heat, X-Pac heat, Peter Avalon and Leva Bates, the librarian, came out, and everyone was booing them, wondering why on earth are they on Dynamite? They should be not on our television. And they will realize pretty quickly why they were there.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're going to have Jon Moxley come out of the crowd and hit the DDT on someone, may as well be Peter Avalon. Like, Peter Avalon and Leva Bates as the librarians. I do like the characters. Instant Heat, because it's just straight up insulting the whatever town we're in some aspect. They're a solid character for AEW Dark. Rare, as you said off the top of the show, rare to see them here on Dynamite. I'd like to see them, have a match where they get a win at some point, because I think there's potential in this librarian character. But nonetheless, this wasn't about Peter Avalon and Leva Bates. This was about Jon Moxley and giving Jon Moxley a live mic on Dynamite. That was the success of this segment.
Yeah, that was awesome. A real promo, talking and saying all things that we kind of knew. Oh, like the real character of Johnny Moxley. The Johnny Moxley we always knew he was whenever he had his lunatic friends or his unhinged moments in the other company. This is what the promo he wanted to say, and the way the other company worded was always different. This came from the heart. This came from the soul of this character, which is Jon Moxley down to 12, to 13. And that's what's great. A unhinged, maybe 2019's best version of a Stone Cold type of character, but still unique enough that you just don't draw parallels between the two. You know what it reminds me of right now? If I have to pinpoint or label what Jon Moxley is right now, you take one part of Stone Cold, you take one part of DDP, and you take a big part of Raven. You put them together in a shaker, shake for 30 seconds, pour that on the rocks, and you got yourself a Jon Moxley.
That's, interesting. 3 parts of some really good character. He kind of feels like, especially this segment alone, he felt a lot like the loose cannon Brian Pillman, honestly. Like, that was who felt like. I agree,
100%. Add fourth part Brian Pillman, you got yourself a 4-part drink.
Yeah, I felt like that. Like, this promo was pretty much just him to, let out some sort of frustration on, what they mentioned off the top, that this match is unsanctioned. You've been building this up for so long, and this win won't count against, their golden boy or whatever. But, he said, that he's, unsanctionable, and Omega's blood's going to be on their hands. And he also mentioned that, they put me in this box, and the suits put me in this box. And I've done that before. So alluding to what he, said on the Jericho podcast, that, he really couldn't express his ideas and stuff when he was in WWE. But all in all, it was a good promo. And, if you didn't need a match with Moxley this week, but nice to see an in-ring promo from him as well. And the more speaking he does, the better, I think.
Yep, I totally agree. And I love the fact that we're not overexposed to the same characters wrestling all the time. I like Jon Moxley. You don't want Jon Moxley to wrestle on television almost ever. He comes in, does a move, leaves, and keeps you wanting more for the pay-per-view. Keeps wanting you to part ways with your hard-earned money to spend on that pay-per-view. The show finishes with the AEW World Tag Team Title Tournament final between SCU and the Lucha Brothers. SCU composed of Frankie, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky. This match was designed to continue the push and the rocket launch of Scorpio Sky to the stratosphere of the tag team division here in AEW. But it was a great match, a great spot. I love the chaos and the fact that not everything is so polished that it looks so choreographed, but enough that it's safe, but it's chaotic enough that it has impact, and it does look like meaningful maneuvers being thrown. A couple of maneuvers, Scorpio Sky launching Frankie Kazarian for the double lariat was awesome, but I have to tell you, Jason, how in the hell is Frankie Kazarian not dead?
Yes, he did take a insane powerbomb through like the table where the timekeeper's table from Pentagon,
and the botch Hurricane Rana that he landed his neck literally on the side of the apron while trying to Hurricane Rana Phoenix out of the third top buckle. Yeah, I don't know how he survived that botch.
Well, I always say the same thing. How in the world has Fenix been able to do some of the spots he did? That spot where he bounced like over Scorpio Sky to hit like that arm drag on Kazarian was utterly insane. And like Fenix is easily a candidate for Wrestler of the Year in 2019. Just insane stuff he does. For how big they were hyping up this tag tournament. I thought they built this tag tournament really well with great tag team wrestling the past couple weeks. One was very weird that these teams didn't get entrances. Like, I know for what the European fans are seeing on Fight, they probably saw an entrance. That to me is insane that they didn't do that. Like, that kind of takes away from the importance of these two teams wrestling to be the first tag team champions in AEW. And second, it's just like, we talked about before, just too many tag matches on this show that this one didn't feel as important as it should. And it was the main event, as it rightfully should have been. But, there was such a standard set for the tag matches in this tournament that while there were some insane spots and Scorpio Sky keeps rising up the ranks as a star to even break out more going into 2020, it just didn't have that magic that I was expecting tonight. I mean, I did like the finish. Sure, people would say like how you needed a decisive move, but you know what? In today's wrestling with, kicking out of this spot, that spot, sometimes a good old-fashioned wrestling move works, and it was Sky that rolled up Pentagon, which I did like. It just didn't have that luster, and just something was missing here. I don't know what it was, but
you nailed it. It was the pageantry at the beginning that was missing. It was the bells and whistles, the pomp and circumstance. What makes you feel like it's a super tag team title match, right? Example, red carpet coming out of the two tunnels, the two belts on a pedestal in the middle of the alleyway, the two teams coming out in the music, looking at the belt, continuing their walk down the ring, looking at each other, getting ready. That's what was missing in this match, I think. And I think, of course, it's a time management mistake, and it's all new for a lot of people. Of course, majority of the people behind the scene working for TNT and AEW in the production of this show are former TNA, WCW, and WWE employees. So they are experienced, but sometimes a few minutes here and there makes it a big difference. And you would have shaved 30 seconds. Like, how long was that Kenny Omega and cartoon intro? It was over a minute. Well, a couple of minutes here and there would have given maybe a bit more importance to that tag team tournament final championship match, with maybe proper pageantry to open this match with proper entrances and, of course, the presentation of the belt in a way, red carpet, whatever the case may be. I agree with you.
Yeah, they needed something like that. And I get that there's a lot of talent. They do have 2 hours. It's about managing your time. But I feel like we have every week at least two, either a tag match and a 6-man tag, or vice versa. In both the men's and women's, it's like a little bit more singles action would be huge here. I mean, you're hyping up your brand based on wins and losses matter. Well, when you look at the graphics under the talents' names, it's singles and then overall. But you need to have a couple more singles matches on your show. And like on Dark this week, there was a triple threat match: Darby Allin, Jimmy Havoc, and Jack Evans. But I was like, how many times have I seen Darby Allin and Jimmy Havoc wrestle in 8? Like, this is the fourth time they've wrestled each other. Like, Darby Allin 2 weeks ago looked like the freshest baby face in the company. He lost that world title match,
and we didn't see it tonight on Dynamite, right? So that's he looked fine in the match. I mean, how he lost as well still kept him strong. Why is he not in some sort of a singles match or a segment? I agree. And if you're gonna give me matches that are not important, why not give me something else? And I think I know why, and maybe I'm mistaken here. And I think it has to do with the overall record and win and loss being important. Is they don't want to paint themselves in corners by having too many people having losses or wins over each other in a too quick fashion. So they're spacing out the single matches so that they can have that narrative and that storyline built over time with the overall win and loss record. So I think there's that aspect. So you can protect more guys and you can protect more women in not overexposing them on losses on single matches every week. But then you need more job guys. And I think that's what will be needed. You need more Alex Silver of this world to come in here, to come and have a loss, and to just help pad some records. That's what needs to be done. You need to pad records in AEW. Give people some jobbers.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that working. Like, not every other match or whatever, because you don't want to go back to the days of Superstars or WCW Saturday Night. But a guy in here, like, you know, when you look how you're building up talent in the realm of boxing, you have a prospect, he fights someone that he's just way overmatched. Like they kind of did with MJF against Brandon Cutler. Like Cutler had no chance in that match in the fans' eye. Like they built him up as a nice story, but MJF gets the win, what have you. Like, and also that's a guy that has been skyrocketing in the fans' eyes with the segments with Cody. Give him a match or something. Like he's had one match on the debut episode of Dynamite, and since then, like, yes, he has been featured on the product, but I'd like to see more of him in ring because he's excellent or what have you. But yeah, I agree. Pad some records, or if you're gonna have a main event, have a main event of a singles match. Like you had a couple tag matches to help get some young talent over with Chris Jericho and Cody or Dustin involved, what have you. You had your tag tournament. I think next week they definitely have to end the show with a singles match of some sort to settle us up for Full Gear.
Well, next week is the go home show, so we definitely need a big angle at the end. And how long has it been since we have a go home show? It actually means something. A go home show to convince you to pay $50 and over on the next Saturday following that go home show. So I think I'm not mistaken by saying I expect big things in next week's AEW show. And I think after next week's Dynamite, after Full Gear on November 9th, so on November 11th, on the episode after, we're going to start the other portion of AEW, where you have the regular time frame of how you build to your pay-per-views. So quarterly pay-per-views, which means 4 a year probably for AEW. So you have 2.5 to 3 months between shows. So you have 3 months to build up. So maybe in those 3 months, we'll have more monthly or bi-weekly climactic matches happening on AEW Dynamite, like main events, and then there'll be one turnover of storyline in my mind where you have the programs will culminate on AEW, and from those programs you build up a bigger storyline to culminate in the following pay-per-view, but that cycle will start on November 11th, I think.
Well, I think so as well, and I think we mentioned this on the first show that we did, that I'm fine with 4 pay-per-views, because you just don't need to have a pay-per-view every month for the sake of having a pay-per-view. Make your pay-per-views mean something. I mean, for how long has the wrestling fans been saying that to WWE? But that's now so written in stone in their schedule, and they have other reasons why they technically should be doing them. They have a network to sell subscriptions to. But, you know, I'm wondering as well, do we get maybe like a Clash of the Champions style show for TNT or what have you? I don't know if we have that, but it's going to be interesting to see how we end the show. Like, my thing with both AEW and NXT the past few weeks is the wrestling's been good to even excellent, and there's some real standout matches for both products, but once again, the wrestling's so good. Like, how do you take it to another level at the big shows?
It's not about the wrestling. That's what it's going to be. It's not going to be about the wrestling. I'll use an MMA analogy. Because Jason, if you are just listening to us, you need to follow Jason if you're a big mixed martial arts fan, because Jason will have you covered in any form of mixed martial arts here on the planet. But Jason, what happens when 2 wrestlers faces each other? It's about the punch, right? So I think there's a little bit of that where, because the wrestling is so good everywhere, that I feel it's the package, it's everything else that will differentiate everyone.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, for this episode in particular, it's like there was really good wrestling, don't get me wrong, but like your main event fell flat. But your angles, your segments were excellent. Like this contract signing segment is easily one of my favorite segments in the last 5 years. It just felt so important. It felt like a big match. The angle at the end was excellent with Dustin Rhodes getting attacked by the Inner Circle. And on NXT, it was like they did a huge angle last week with Finn Balor, turning heel. Like there's so much intrigue in that. Like the main event there was excellent, but it's like that quality. It's just basically solid indie shows with maybe an angle here and there. Who knows? But I think that's the thing that just makes it harder for the talent. Like, how do they got to top themselves? And it's going to get to that point where they're just going to do something stupid to hurt themselves.
Yeah, and can Chris Jericho continue to be that good? I think so, and we've seen it since the late 80s. Chris Jericho is probably the longest standing superstar in the world of wrestling right now by far. He's Ric Flair. I guess he's my generation's Ric Flair. So Chris Jericho, can he continue to be the best heel in the world of professional wrestling? And I think he can.
I have all the faith in the world in Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho's hit his stride like he did about 10 years ago when he started that like Nick Bockwinkel character, or using the big words, coming out in the suits when he was world heavyweight champion. He's almost better than that right now. Jericho being the champion is the best thing. So I really am interested to see how they go heading into the go home next Wednesday, and then of course Full Gear on November the 9th.
As always, you can follow Jason at jhagholm1 on social media, myself at Kev Laramee also, and this show at All Elite Review. We hope you enjoyed the review of episode 5 of All Elite Wrestling. You can find the podcast version of this show on our website, sportspodcastnetwork.com. You can find it everywhere you find your podcast, and we're always live Wednesday night after AEW Dynamite on Twitter at All Elite Review. And until next time, for Jason, I'm Kevin Laramee. Enjoy your week in the wrestling world.